At the tone, 23 hours, 59 minutes, Coordinated Universal Time.
Hey, welcome everyone to this hangout. I don't know what number. I should actually number my hangouts. Know how many I actually did with the time. I'm going to check my channel and do that. Welcome to this shortwave hangout for Friday night. And we are Friday, November 28th.
At the tone, 0 hours, 0 minutes.
We're getting to 0 hours UT, so it means we're going to November 29th UTC, November 28th North America. Welcome to the hangout. Tonight, a program where we're going to talk about mysterious sounds of shortwave, and what I mean by that is mysterious stations you might hear, all sorts of mysterious sounding things on the air, what they could be, what they might be, what they are when we know. And we're going to talk about that tonight. And I think it's going to be interesting. Of course, we're going to have a little bit of news, first of all. So welcome everyone to the hangout. Now, how do you interact with me? First of all, there's the questions and answer on the shortwave hangout. When you're on the live hangout, there's a little kind of a little thing that shows up on the video and says that you can interact by clicking there, and that will bring you to the questions and answer tab on the Google Hangout. The questions and answer tab gives me, every time you write something there, it shows up here on my screen, so I can actually check it out. So it's a nice way of interacting. If you don't use that, then you can also interact by email, and it's officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. That's where you can write me by email. And you can also interact via Twitter at my Twitter feed, which is @shortwaveradios. A lot of people start to interact over there when I have live hangouts, so that's another spot where you can check me out. So hopefully we're already at we're at 38 spectators, slowly building. I see that the counter is building up. First, with a little bit of news, we had news about Radio Exterior de España. Radio Exterior de España that left shortwave in October. There's a lot of things happening over there. The government, being blamed about the fact that they stopped shortwave, and now it seems that the government will actually bring back a budget for shortwave radio of Spain. The thing is the budget that they are going to give back is not in the same size as the budget that Radio Exterior de España had before. So there's going to be a lot of cuts if they do come back, because that's the other thing. Will they really come back? Because there's look at Radio Canada International here. We had kind of some hope, because there was a lot of things happening with Radio Canada International And finally, nothing happened. And you know what? I'm actually really mad at the CBC because they started to dismantle the Sackville, New Brunswick transmitter site very fast because they want to make sure that they don't have to start transmissions on shortwave again. They don't want to use that budget. And actually, the CBC here is having drastic cuts, and to a point where we're actually wondering what the Canadian broadcaster will become in the next few years, because the budget is really drastically cut. And you know, a lot of people are scared. And you know, in Canada we have French-speaking Quebec, where I live. We have the English part of Canada, and what's happening is that a lot of the French-speaking Quebec people are wondering, will the French be saved from CBC? And you know, and in general, everywhere in Canada, there's also the side of where we're wondering what will become and what's the programming and news we're going to have from Radio Canada and from the CBC. So same thing in Spain. If they do come back, because it does seem like they will come back, will they have external services? And what I mean external services is, will there be French, English, and other languages, German? Or will it come back on shortwave as a Spanish-only shortwave station? Now, it's better that they come back as a Spanish-only than not come back at all, but I would sure miss the fact that they would have some, you know, English, French, and different languages like they had before. Let's hope that, you know, they will come back with foreign languages. The problem with the foreign languages is that you know, they appeal to a certain audience that is us. One of the biggest problems with international broadcasts is the fact that nobody knows who's listening. And we know one thing is that for shortwave broadcasts, every time they get one letter from a listener, there's probably about 100 listeners that never write. But the thing is when you don't write, you don't know. You know, I look at my hangouts here, and the hangouts here are the fact that I get up to 120 people actually watching because I see the counter. But there's like 10 or 12 or 15 of you that will write or interact and let me know. At least I have something tangible, visible. I have a counter. There's no counter for shortwave radio stations. If you don't write to them, they don't know. So let's hope that shortwave, you know, Radio Exterior de España comes back. That would be really cool. It would be even better if they have their, you know, French, English, and all these external languages. That would be really nice. And actually, you know what? If Spain comes back on shortwave, with the fact that now Global and WRMI is taking more space on the web, on the shortwave band, sorry, it would be like the first time that there's actually like more shortwave outlets and programs than the year before, because, you know, everything's like slowly declining. But that would be like the first time I think that maybe it wouldn't be declining this year. It would actually be a little more than it used to. So let's cross our fingers at that. Hello, Andrew from Berlin. And yeah, we're gonna check, you know, decoding, and we're gonna check sounds and what they are and what we should do and what you do for that, and so on. We're not, you know, necessarily gonna decode a lot of it, but we're going to try to understand what they are. And yeah, I'll surely put a few examples of what we can do to bring that live. So Andrew from Berlin, welcome to the Hangout. And we are at 82 right now on the counter, which is really nice. Thanks for being there. Next item of news that I have, Global 24 Radio. Now, Global 24 Radio, let's go to their transmission, which is 24 hours on. 93, 95.
5 years ago, the world was actually absolutely shocked by the news that there'd been a mass assassination of journalists and civilians. 32.
So one thing that is interesting and intriguing of Global 24. Global 24, for those that, in case some of you don't know, because most of you probably know, and that's why you're here. And for those that don't know, Global 24 is a new shortwave broadcaster. They started in early November, and they transmit 24 hours a day on 93, 95 kilohertz. A very wide variety of programming. They retransmit the WRN, which is the World Radio Network, from time to time. So they also retransmit, thanks to that, Radio Prague, Radio Slovakia. They have Radio France. They have Channel Africa from South Africa. They have Polish radio. They have a lot of transmissions from other ex or still shortwave broadcasters, but for North America. Now, there's a lot of complaints about 93, 95 kilohertz, and one of them, and of course I'm also a victim of that, is the fact that we have bad reception for a great part of the transmission. 93, 95 comes in well, usually in the evening.
It's a lawless place.
From about, here local time, from about, I'd say 4 p.m., way on through the night until when I go to bed, like at midnight. They usually come in well. So the evening is good. Now, for North America, that's not too bad, but it's not like that for everybody. First of all, 93, 95 is a frequency that's a little high. So probably some of you that are closer to Florida, where the transmission comes from, might actually have difficulty in receiving Global 24. But one of the things that I want to come to with Global 24 is that I don't know if it's because I expected too much out of that broadcaster. I mean, it's interesting, and I tune Global 24. If I listen to shortwave and one day I'll tune Global 24 regularly in that period of time because I want to see what's on. The thing is about Global 24 is that they do seem to have a lot of music programs, which is okay. I mean, it's not that it's bad to have music programs, but they seem to have a lot of music programs, and I'm almost wondering if their music programs are not there to just fill up airtime that they just couldn't either sell to broadcasters or find anyone else to take the spot. And I was kind of expecting in an evening to listen to different types of programs. And this week, I tuned to 93, 95 every evening regularly. And I was always on a music program. It would have been interesting to have maybe other types of programming, relays of shortwave broadcasters. I think that would be cool. But we'll see. They are starting up, and one thing that's for sure is that shortwave broadcasting does cost money, and they're trying to, probably find a way to monetize that broadcast. And they do a lot of airing of, universal radio ads, and another one that I don't remember the name, but it's like, components and parts for radios and electronics and antennas and stuff. So if you listen to Global 24 and have a chance of maybe buying something off of one of their sponsors, I think that would be nice. That's for sure. So please write to them, let them know you're listening. The only way that they know that somebody's out there, and they can actually show. Because, if you write to them, they have statistics, real ones, that they can show the companies and say, look, you can run an ad on our show because there's so many people listening. You know, I'm looking at my counter here. I'm at 100 now, and I'm wondering, I have 100 people watching my live feed here. Is there at least 100 people listening to this tonight?
Decided to prioritize their transmission network.
I'd like to know. Is there at least 100 people listening to 93, 95? Who knows? A little bit of bad news to the international broadcasts is the BBC. The BBC slowly is, you know, kind of telling us that the next broadcast season is going to be a huge cut for the BBC. Already the BBC has been cut a lot in their budget, in their shortwave outlets. One of the reasons why the shortwave outlets is also cut a lot is because there's a lot of local station actually broadcasting the BBC. And an example here, I'm listening to the BBC NewsHour on the VPR station just across the border in Vermont that I hear quite well on FM 107.9. And if it's not that, I have my internet radio right here and I just tune from there. Now, if I have a choice, I like to listen to them on shortwave, but I don't really have a choice. And the thing is, with all the FM outlets, I think the BBC is kind of wondering, is shortwave really the future for their broadcasts? So it seems that the 8/15 season, the next scheduled season that's going to start at the end of March, will see drastic cutbacks in the BBC transmissions, and that's going to be kind of sad, you know. And there's even talk about, you know, closing down shortwave relays like Ascension Islands and stuff like that. I hope not. One thing for sure is that, you know, we have to think about shortwave as something that's kind of you know, I think for continents like Africa and a lot of Southeast Asia, shortwave is still very, very, very important. But I think everybody understands that for North America, shortwave is now something that not a lot of people do. And you know, a lot of things are happening and are actually playing into this. And you know, I don't know how many times I hear people saying, why you listen to shortwave with the static and all when you can listen to it? You know what, I actually put the feed of WRMI on my internet radio. I can show you here. I'm just gonna start it like this. In the daytime, when I'm at home, since 93, 95 doesn't come in very well in mid-afternoon, I actually program their internet feed into my Sangian internet radio so that I can listen to them via the internet radio. And that's, you know what, I'm a radio fanatic, but the link of how you go from that to you know, something. Let's just check here. I put the feed somewhere. Let's just check that. So global 24 areas. Global 24. So this says 9395. So I have a choice of this with static or this.
The HFCC, a number of those, some of the larger broadcasters, even the ones you mentioned, have in recent years been reducing their shortwave airtime.
And actually, they are talking about shortwave right now.
Together. And
so it is an interesting program right now on WRMI, talking about reduction of shortwave, you know, outlets. So, you know, hello, my friend from Barcelona. And it's always nice to see you, David, from Barcelona. And thanks for being in the live hangout. It's always nice to see people joining him, and always, you know, I get these emails and these comments all the time. When's the next hangout? When's the next hangout? Yeah, everybody wants to know when's the next one. So it's cool, and you know, you feel like you want to do something. At least it's always fun. But you know, I do my hangouts with the feedback that I get, and the stations, if they don't get feedback, how can it continue? So welcome, David in Barcelona. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about propagation before we start our official show about mysterious noise of shortwave. Propagation has been good this week, actually, because solar flux stayed high. The geomagnetic activity stayed low. A good combination for shortwave. But one thing that I noticed, and you know, I wonder if they should have chosen a different frequency, is the fact that KBS World Radio from South Korea that decided to stay on 15575 for North America is zero audible. I don't even hear a faint carrier. And it was actually at some point I was wondering if they didn't remove the broadcast of shortwave. I was really wondering, did they remove 15575? It seems that they didn't. You know, it's just that propagation is not making it to North America. And talking of propagation, let's check Thailand. Yeah, Thailand's making it tonight. This is Thailand. 13745. If you guys are in North America and want to try Thailand.
France had warned yesterday that it would recognize a Palestinian state if a final international effort to overcome the impasse between Israelis and Palestinians failed. The country proposed a 2-year time frame to end the conflict through a UN-backed resolution.
This is direct from Thailand, so you see that 13745 is actually propagating quite well.
Second, over the move to recognize
David in Barcelona, Spain, is telling me one that doesn't cut its shortwave outlets is China Radio International. Man, that is true. Not only aren't they cutting it, I think every broadcast season they even have more times and frequencies. It's interesting to note that China Radio International actually seems to believe that shortwave is really a medium to use to get to the world. And you know, they have these relays to North America, and they have lots of transmission. It's interesting, really interesting to see that they keep up their transmissions. So and you know what, there was a on Global 24 there was a repeat of a program about the future of shortwave the other day, and one of the guys on the show said that in a kind of a joke that, you know, the future shortwave will be religious broadcasters in China Radio International. And well, you know, when you think about it, you're almost wondering if that's not going to be the case. The amount of religious broadcasters on shortwave is amazing, and I don't, you know, I wonder about that. The amount of shortwave broadcasters, and so, you know, I don't even get why there's, like, you know, 30 frequencies for Brothers there and 20 frequencies for you know, some other religious stuff. I guess, you know, there's somebody listening. Andrew says that in Berlin he's not been able to hear Global 24. One thing that I know is that their antenna pattern for Global 24 is very, very North America. They seem to have placed the antenna pattern kind of the, centered in North America. So it means that here in North America, we are the target audience of Global 24, which means that in Europe, it's probably harder to receive. And, 93, 95 would probably propagate in Europe somewhere like at maybe around, 2200 hours UTC, or maybe in the 05 or 600 hours UTC period. I don't know, 93 to 95. But I think the reason in Europe they're hard to receive is really the fact that Global 24 is really focusing on North America in their broadcasts. There is one thing that I know. They did one to Europe, I think is early December. I have to check that, and I'll try to post a video. They are going to try a transmission, I think, towards Asia. It's interesting. I think they're trying to figure out how they can transmit to the world. So maybe they have really an interesting focus on being a big broadcaster. That would be cool. Having different areas where WRMI or Global 24 transmit. That would be nice. They have such a nice transmitter site in Okeechobee, Florida. So why not? So let's start our show about mysterious shortwave sounds. And we've all heard mysterious shortwave sounds. And you know what? The first thing that I remember when I started listening to shortwave is the weird sounds that I would get and receive on my portable receiver, and wondering, what is that? What is that sound? It's, there's so much mysterious thing. And you know what? We're kind of, I remember Passport to World Band Radio. I'm going to have to, just a second, guys. I'm going to show you one because I still have an old one here. This was a great book, actually, about shortwave broadcasting. And always made me kind of laugh because the book has like little green man. And I always wondered, well, okay, so we are these strange people listening to shortwave, I guess. And, for many years, the book had these little green men. And I was like, okay, we are mysterious and strange people listening to the radio. And the first thing that happens is when you turn on your radio, you get sounds. And the first thing, of course, is static. Static is the first thing that you hear. And then you start tuning around, and you start hearing in the static things like this. And maybe weird stuff like that. And we're wondering, what is that? Maybe you'll be tuning around, not knowing what this is, and you'll hear. Let's try to find one that's better. Or you're out of, and wondering, what is that? It's so mysterious. So we're going to talk about the different types of signals we get that are bizarre and mysterious, where they might come from. And we're going to tune around a little bit and try to, maybe come across something special. The first mysterious things that you'll probably come across on shortwave is time signal stations, like WWV or CHU, which is not very strong tonight. And you start wondering, what are those? Why is there a station actually giving time? And you know, I remember the first time that I heard CHU or WWV and wondering, what's that and why is it there? Why are they giving the time every minute? And there's a reason why there's time signal stations, and you know, you learn with time that, well, these mysterious sounds are time signal stations. And what are time signal stations? Well, they're you know, they have a purpose, because one of the purpose for, you know, pretty much everybody, the regular people, let's say it like that, normal people will, you know, adjust the clocks. They'll take their clocks and say, oh, it's cool, I can adjust the clock and know that I'm on time. But it has more than that. It has scientific value for all sorts of observations. First of all, these are stations that are extremely precise in their frequencies, and so not only do they give you know, perfect time, like here.
Coordinated universal time.
As you see, my clock is pretty well synchronized. And of course, I use WWV to do that. But, you know, apart from that, there's a scientific value to it. There's a technical value to it. If you want to adjust the receiver frequency, for example, you might use equipment. You might use, you know, signal generator. You might use all sorts of electrical equipment. But let's say you don't have any of that equipment around, but you still want to tune and make sure that the receiver is fine-tuned to a frequency. Well, we know one thing is that time signal stations are extremely precise in the way that they, you know, have their frequencies synthesized. Not only do the atomic clocks synchronize time, but the atomic clocks are used to actually create the frequency on which they transmit. So it means that they have ultra precise frequencies, ultra precise, so they can be used to fine-tune equipment. And you know, even though shortwave sometimes distorts a little bit that signal, it usually is good enough for tuning around the equipment. So, you know, that's one of the weird signals we hear on the air, and we're like, what is that? I've never heard that before. And then you start tuning around the bands, and, you know, another type of signal, you tune around and you're like, Morse code. And pretty much everybody, I think, hears this and says, well, you know, that's Morse code. I think maybe today is a little different, but when I was young, you know, I don't think it never crossed my mind that that would be other things than Morse code. And, you know, I was thinking, well, you want to try to decode Morse code. By the way, this weekend, if you want to listen to the handbands, is the CQ Worldwide CW contest. That's why there's a lot of signals on Morse code here. But Morse code comes from different sources on shortwave. One of them is amateur radio. Why? Because amateur radio requires Morse code on higher licenses. For example, here in Canada, the basic license does not require Morse code, but it's very limited. It's limited to local bands like VHF and UHF bands. It's limited to a very, very small portion of HF. And if you want to get your advanced license, you'll have to go through learning and sending Morse code signals. And actually, some people are and will always be Morse code for all of their lives, even though they have the capability of talking. So Morse code, another type of mysterious signal we hear. You might think, why are we using Morse code in 2014? Well, first of all is why not? Second of all is, I think we have to always keep Morse code, the knowledge of Morse code, because it might someday be useful. And even though it doesn't show, maybe we're thinking, with all the technology we have, why would Morse code be so important? One of the advantages of Morse code and of our brains is the fact that even in a very, very high noise, in a very, very weak signal, our brain is capable of getting that CW signal. Is there only amateur radio stations that transmit Morse code? Of course not. There are all sorts of stations that transmit Morse code. I'll try to, here's one. That's another weird one. So here is WLO. And how do I know that? Because I understand the CW signal there. And this is a mix of a digital signal, kind of a ARQ type signal, and a Morse code signal. This is like a kind of a marker, if you want. This is a maritime station. This is WLO in, I believe it's in Louisiana, USA. They have these markers here where they transmit all the time for maritime purposes, for boats at sea. And Morse code is also used by maritime stations, and you know, it can be used for another purpose, something called a CW marker. What's a CW marker? You might actually come across a broadcast that is just a letter. There's a lot of them all across the bands. A CW marker is a letter sent in Morse code. And what you'll notice is that the letter is sent all the time. And if you listen an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you'll always have that letter sent all the time at regular intervals. That's another Morse code type signal you get on the mysterious sounds and mysterious shortwave bands. And what they are exactly, we're not sure. I got an article here on Wikipedia, and there's, you know, single letters. Some send groups of letters, numbers. Some we think are probably spy stations, but they're sending out in Morse code instead of sending out in voice. These are all little things that show up here and there. If you tune the band very slowly, you'll probably hear one of those. Actually, one of the comments that I get here, very nice. Andrew saying that he caught my surprise hangout, because I had a surprise hangout earlier today. I was waiting for my 50-inch TV, and I got a new 50-inch TV. And since I had nothing else to do than wait, I actually did a little live hangout earlier. And he's asking me, what's that Morse code iPhone app that I am using? Well, one thing about Morse code is if you want to decode what's on the air, you don't have to learn Morse code. You can use a program. Now, if you have a PC or a Mac, you can use FLDG, which is very good at decoding CW signals. I've used it, and it's not that bad. If you have a PC, one that's even better is multi-PSK. It's really hard to understand, and the interface is bad. But it's probably one of the best Morse code decoders out there. And by the way, the term CW and Morse code are the same. If I go on my radio here, now I'm in CW. I have that mode on my radio. Well, CW is simply continuous wave. That's the way, that technical way of saying Morse code. It's Morse code. So the app that I have on my iPhone is, which I'm going to show you guys here on my radio stuff, is an app that is called Morse Decoder. As simple as that. I think I paid 99 cents for it. And Morse Decoder is actually a nice little app. I don't know if you can, it's kind of hard to show something here. Let's just, blast. Here we go. So this is pretty much what it looks like. And basically it's, you just kind of put the, tune the signal with Morse code and let it decode by the app. It's automatic. And Morse Decoder is actually quite good for iPhone or iPad if you have an iOS device. There's also a version for Android, and you can decode Morse code with your, Galaxy, Samsung Galaxy Nexus phone or whatever Android tablet you might be using. Works quite well. Well enough that you don't actually need to hook up a wire. All you need is a quiet environment. You just put it close to the speaker, and it's going to decode Morse code. And that's what I was doing this morning. Actually, I stumbled across some Morse code and decoded the Morse code beacons using my this app, which is Morse Decoder. So just search for Morse Decoder in the App Store for iPhone or iPad. And if you're on Android device, just go to the Google Play Store and get yourself one of these apps. So pretty cool. Lauren, Elohan, welcome to the Hangout. Could it be Lauren? Lauren is almost not used anymore on the HF bands. There was a lot of it in the 80s, 90s, but they've kind of phased out that all the Lauren stuff from the HF bands. They're probably using, satellites or I don't know, maybe over the internet or something. It's really changed a lot. One of the major Lauren stuff we heard was 100 kilohertz. When we would tune 100 kilohertz on a receiver, we would hear these kind of data bursts, and we don't hear anything anymore. So it's pretty much gone from shortwave. And welcome to the Hangout, band. There's also here NDB, yeah, non-directional beacons on long wave are also identified by 3-letter call sign. That's true. If we go to, for example, here I'll go in long wave, 248. Here we have. So this is long wave, way below the medium wave band. This UL. This is the beacon of the non-directional beacon of the local airport here, sending out these IDs that actually identify which airport the non-directional beacons come from, actually. So Sorry, I was just looking at who's writing. We have, by the way, just to add a few people here, we have Susan from California. Welcome. It's the third or fourth time I think she is on the Hangout. Nice to have you on the Hangout. It's always cool. She says that she's enjoying it all the time. Thank you, Suzanne. Welcome to Hangout. Interesting. I got a message here that says that St. Joseph 74 says that the FCC no longer requires Morse code for any license class. I didn't know that. I thought that even in the US, you still had to do some Morse code for higher licenses. But I think here in Canada, we still have to do Morse code for the higher license. I think it is unfortunate. You know what? It's kind of hard to dose things correctly. There's the real hard amateur radio guy that's going to tell you they should have left Morse code all the way. Now we got to think that we're in 2014. Morse code is not something that's used a lot. I think there should be one class of license that still requires it, some kind of license that you need that knowledge to have that license. But I'm okay with the fact that they've removed it from other types of licenses for just because a lot of people didn't get their license just for one and only one reason: they didn't know Morse code. So you know, I think to have a lot of, you know, some of the license, you know, even on the HF bands, I think you should have access to more HF bands here in Canada without Morse code, but add that little something, you know. And you know, it's a sign of the times. We are moving ahead. Even, you know, the maritime stations, look at how much Morse code is left in the maritime stations. Not a lot, actually. And a lot of them are, you know, even removing themselves from shortwave. I think, you know, we're being beat by satellites and all of that. So, you know, it's something to check, you know, and think. Yep, letters RUL and for the local airport here. Hello, Mr. Roberto. Welcome to the Hangout. It's nice to hear you. Hello, Steve from Vancouver. Fellow Canadian, all across Canada, the other side, Pacific side of Canada. So welcome to the Hangout. It's nice to see you. To actually know that you are there. It's pretty cool. So we continue on with those mysterious sounds of shortwave, and then we stumble across. Let's go to another one here. Let's go here. That's another one we hear quite often. And a lot of people just stumble across this and say, what is that? I don't know. I heard that for so many years without even knowing what it was. Until someday I read for the first time in my life an article about digital mounts. And this is radio teletype. This is a very old digital mount. This actually was transmitted way back in the 60s and 70s and decoded by mechanical machines. So today it is done electronically with computers that are specialized in radio teletype. And a lot of boats actually had the kind of the printout coming out as the teletype was decoded inside the radio room. Radio teletypes, there are all sorts of radio teletype signals. Here in 4 megahertz, this is some kind of commercial teletype, or maybe it could be a radio teletype for a maritime. It could be something about, you know, for the Navy, the Army. There's a lot of teletypes. There's less and less, but there's still some press agencies. So there's newspapers and some overseas agencies that actually send out the news through radio teletype. I always remembered when I heard I had my first little cartridge for the Commodore 64. It was called the SWL. And it was a Morse code and teletype decodes cartridge. And you hook it up to that radio. And I hook it up actually to my old DX100 here. And one of the first things that I decoded was Agence France Presse, which was sending out over radio teletype the day's news. And that was kind of exciting, you know. You're hearing this weird signal on the air, and you're like, wow, that is text being decoded by a computer. And actually, I had a very nice a comment that I found kind of interesting this week. Somebody on the YouTube channel looked at one of my videos where I'm decoding weather facts. And the comment posted was, do you mean these sounds actually are translated into that picture? And yeah, that's exactly it. These sounds are you know, translated into text. What can you use to decode these signals? Now, first, you need to know one thing. There are different types of radio teletype signals. You need to know the shift and, you know, how wide it is. Some is 425, some is 850. The speed, how many words per minute. That comes with experience, first of all, and also in a, you know, digital environment with a computer, you learn to actually get the hear. You know, you just listen to the signal and you say, oh, that's an 850 shift, and that's 100 words per minute. You kind of get your ear trained to that. But one thing that you got to know, there's a lot, actually the majority of radio teletype signals out of the amateur radio bands are encrypted. That means that nothing out of most of these signals really is decoded. And unless you know what type of encryption they use, there's not a lot of chance. But you know what? That doesn't mean you can't try it. You can use a software like FLDG, Mac PC. There's something on the iPhone called IRTTY. If I actually fire it up here, I'm going to go to IRTTY on my iPhone. And IRTTY is this piece of software. This actually decodes. So if I put it close here, you see the spikes at the bottom. And what you have to do is just just adjust the different settings so that they are added correctly, and eventually you get your RTTY signal decoded on the bands. Sorry, kind of just take a bit of water here. Hey, Mr. Scotty, TR6. Oh, he's got, he's used the SWL cartridge connected with his, on his Commodore 64 with his R390 back in the 80s. And he still has them and they still work. Wow, cool. I would really, you know what? I still have an old Commodore 128 here, which is compatible with Commodore 64 stuff. And gotta show this to you guys because it's just so cool. So I'm wondering if you know, that might be something to check for those that want to see what's an old computer like. Don't mind the it's kind of a little dusty, but this is a Commodore 128 and it actually works. And the SWL cartridge would go in here, in this slot here. So it's an amazing little thing. So it's pretty much the same thing that he's been using with his Commodore. So like I was saying, a lot of RTTY signals are, you know, encrypted. There's a lot of RTTY signals on the amateur bands though, and that's something you can listen to. So for example, if you go on, let's try 7.095 here. It's not allowed at this time, but you usually hear a lot of RTTY signals. It's very quiet tonight. All of them are in Morse code for the contest this weekend. So this is one here. This is amateur radio RTTY. So this would be decoded by my software here on the iPhone, for example. So that's another mysterious sound of shortwave. That's kind of interesting. Other types of signals that you can hear are over the horizon radar, or the woodpeckers. You might have listened to a woodpecker. I don't know if I can just bring out here a sound clip here, make you hear. And you probably came across the woodpecker type of signal. And here, I'm going to post this. Check for what this could be actually. So, sorry, this is an ad. So here's what it sounds like. It's like an helicopter. And I actually hear a lot of woodpecker type signals pretty much every day. I haven't heard any in the past, maybe in the past week, but I've actually heard a lot of them in on shortwave, and they seem to be back actually. The woodpeckers, but somebody was telling me that it's not actually the woodpecker as it was back in the 80s. In the 80s, a woodpecker was a radar system, and that radar system was used by Russia. And they had these huge curtain antennas that would broadcast pulses. And they had very sensitive receivers that would listen for the echoes of these pulses and create a map of airplanes, missiles, or whatever would be in the air using these. I don't know how accurate they were actually, but from one thing that I know is that I've been hearing what sounds like woodpecker stuff, and I'm pretty sure that it's probably the same type of transmission. some kind of a radar transmission environment where they actually, you know, try to, you know, maybe detect aircrafts and stuff like that. Another thing that might be used, because one of the woodpecker projects, and someone was telling me that what sounds like a woodpecker could also be something that is kind of ionospheric sounding. So meaning that these pulses are now used to check what frequencies are propagating. And actually I have a very interesting little experiment that I've been conducting in the past month. And I've been able to actually do it 3 times. I've been hearing the woodpecker around something like around 14.400 or around like that. And every day when my radio is not tuning anything special and I'm working at home, I've been posting my radio on, you know, 14.440 and waiting for the presence of a woodpecker. And behold, when I hear a woodpecker, I start tuning up fast. And every time the woodpecker would stop, I'd continue tuning up. And notice that it jumped around every 300-400 kilohertz. And it was really nice because it always works. If you hear the woodpecker, when it stops, start tuning up. And you'll hear it. And when it stops, continue tuning up. And 3 times I did that. I followed the woodpecker from about 14.400. The highest I've heard it was 22.500 or something like that. And it always follows that pattern. And so I'm wondering if probably today's woodpecker that we hear on the bands is more of a ionospheric type sounding. So they're trying to find what frequencies are being you know, are working between point A and point B. So by doing that regularly, what they do is they know, okay, we can transmit a signal on 15 megahertz because it is propagating well. Or today we're going to choose a signal at 18 megahertz because that's better, and so on. So it might not be like it was before as a radar. And more, probably today's more like sounding the ionosphere, trying to find out. Talking about a weird signal. I don't know if we're going to hear it again. I've got one here. I'm going to take part here because I just heard something. I don't know what that is. That's another one of those mysterious signals. Just here, it's like a very rapid, almost digital sounding mode. I don't know if anybody heard it, because I know that the sound is not always good through the, especially when there's a lot of static. And I know that the Google Hangout sound is kind of compressed, so it's not always good. It's like a cell phone. When you play music on a cell phone, it's not good. And I know that Google seems to actually compress a lot of the sound. I don't know if it's going to start again, but that's another one of those weird, really weird signals that you hear on the bands. And so I think the woodpecker, like I said today, is probably more of a general. There we go. There's another one. One thing that some people might have heard in the past, I'm going to bring up once again here a little sound clip, because you know, most of these are impossible to really tune live. They're kind of difficult. Here's something that you might have heard. I don't know if you guys hear it. I'm going to try it again. So these are kind of tones. This is something that's called, that comes from a big facility in Alaska called HARP. HARP is something like high, well, I'm just gonna check out. So HARP is the big facility, and it's the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. And what you just heard, these series of tones, is one of those transmissions from HARP. And you know, there's a lot of mystery surrounding HARP, what it is. A lot of people say it controls the weather. A lot of people say that you know, it's some kind of mysterious weapon. And hello, Dan. Welcome to the hangout from Maryland. Enjoys my videos. He's got many receivers, and says thanks for helping keeping the shortwave bug going. Hey, my pleasure. It's always I'm here for that, and I enjoy it a lot. So HARP is really an experiment based on trying to eat up. Okay, that's the official, and I think that's pretty much what it is. Everybody has, you know, its own opinion. And hello, Martin Williams. Welcome to the hangout. And that was pretty much trying to ionize the ionosphere. So the idea behind HARP basically was, let's pump so much megawatt of power in the ionosphere that we're going to eat it up, excite the electrons, and create our own little ionosphere where we can broadcast some signal through it. And that's pretty much what it did. Does it control the weather and stuff like that? I don't think that having, you know, 1,000 megawatt of power is enough to change anything on Earth, because Earth's own energy and what it's doing is much greater than that. And that's just like a very small portion. But anyway, HARP is some kind of experiment that was happening and happened for a few years. And as Martin just mentions, HARP facility is actually closed. They officially closed down in June of this year. The reason why is because of U.S. federal cutbacks in budgets. And I think it was the Massachusetts Institute of Technology that wanted to buy it and conduct experiments, but they needed funding. They needed to get the cash. They didn't get enough cash for that. And so we've got, you know, this multi-million-dollar facility right smack in the middle of forest in Alaska that's pretty much not doing anything anymore. And you know, that's sad. It's some kind of, you know, waste of money. And you know, why not use it for shortwave broadcasting from Alaska? Maybe we could what's the station, KNLS in Alaska? They could get the HARP transmitter and send a gazillion watts to China or something. But HARP is gone, and it seems that they're going to dismantle everything in the coming months and years. So, you know, that was one of those experiments. One that I hear sometimes, but doesn't seem to be there right now, is another mysterious sound. It's called the buzzer on 4625 kilohertz. The buzzer is an interesting signal. So here we'll another audio clip of the buzzer. I'm just gonna try to get a good signal out of it. Here it is. So what you're hearing here is what we call the buzzer, and I actually hear it regularly on 4625 in the evenings here. Tonight is not the night for that, but 4625, if you stay there, the buzzer is one of those signals. It's also called UVB76. What we know about the buzzer is that it's a Russian broadcast, and it's kind of a buzz tone. And what's interesting is some people speculated that the buzzer is a actual data transmission, but a lot of people actually heard the buzzer being interrupted, and suddenly, out of nowhere, comes a voice transmission, which is kind of a SPY number transmission. So it could be digital with sometimes voice. One thing that I think it might be is, you've heard the buzzer here, how easy it is to spot on the bands. I think that it would be kind of easy to just spot a buzzer, so that when the spy wants to listen to some broadcast at a certain time, it's easy for him to find the frequency, even on a little analog radio. He'll hear the buzzing, and he's just going to stay there and wait for that mysterious spy transmission. That's also something that's pretty mysterious, the buzzer. And if you're in North America, from time to time in the evening, especially late evening, go tune 4625. There's a good chance you'll be hearing it. I hear it regularly, and actually, the next time I hear the buzzer, I'm going to make a video and post it on the channel, because it's an interesting little broadcast. It's one of those mysterious things that, what the hell is it, and what do they do with that? I don't really know. Who knows? David in Barcelona is saying that 4860 is actually a good frequency for the woodpecker over the horizon radar. So over the horizon radar are often on 4860 apparently. So that's possible. We can hear it, hear them pretty much everywhere, and that is interesting to know. Yep, one interesting one here that I actually have not didn't take note, but actually it is a mysterious thing. And he says, that tweet sound. I'm going to give you an idea here with a broadcast. You might be listening to something, and you'll suddenly hear something that sounds like, I would say, a little faster. It's like, And what it sounds like is a sweep in a signal, like if a transmitter would be changing frequency. And actually, I noticed one thing when I was using the DX Patrol SDR receiver. It has that spectrum scope, and for the first time, I could view visually on the spectrum that type of signal, and it's actually a sweeper. It goes from the bottom of the band and it sweeps outwards at regular intervals. And the SDR was fantastic for that because you could really see that little peak moving across the shortwave band. So you know, sometimes be listening to a international broadcaster, for example, and you hear that tweet. You know, doesn't even last a quarter of a second. And when I was listening to shortwave on the SDR, I could see that the little peak coming, and I knew that it was going to be heard in, you know, a few seconds, because if I was listening to a signal, I could see it slowly coming through. And I was like, oh, it's gonna happen. And when it passed over, I heard tweet, and then it would continue on same range. That is probably some other form of ionospheric sounding, I think. That, I would presume, is a transmitter going through the bands and checking out what frequencies are propagating and what frequencies are not. But that is also a very weird one. You know, we hear it very often. I think if you listen to shortwave once or twice in a day, you're pretty much going to hear it at least once. That's another very thank you, David, for bringing this one up. The little tweet. That is so true. It's so weird of a station to listen to. Another type of signal that you might come across, and we're going to go to 4 megahertz for that, is things like this. These are all over the bands, and these are the type of signal called stagnag. It's some kind of a digital transmission. Also, these are also bizarre. You know, when you tune the bands and you hear that on your radio, you're like, "What is that?" It's just so bizarre. And stagnag is a form of digital transmission. There's like RTTY. Stagnag is often something that is, in most occasions, it's something that's pretty much encrypted for most, but it is, you know, a form of a digital transmission. And you hear it all across the bands, and probably the same agencies that are running like these encrypted RTTY signals or radio teletype are the agencies that are going to use, you know, be using stagnag. That's pretty sure. Hey, Mark, welcome to the Hangout from Maine. Robert Cole from Philadelphia, welcome to the Hangout also. Mark saying, how's the new TV? Oh, it's great. I've been actually playing with that TV all afternoon and just love it. New 50-inch LED TV. It's a smart TV, has interesting features, very beautiful image quality, and really been happy. It's incredible because it replaces an old 46-inch projector TV that weighs a ton. And I mean, I had to actually take the TV, the old TV apart in a lot of little parts to actually bring it outside for garbage. And this one, 50-inch, you just pick it up, and okay, I want it here. And it's just amazing how it doesn't, weigh anything. So welcome both Mark and Robert. Nice to see you guys on the Hangout. It's always fun to so Dan also from Maryland, enjoying the live show. It's always fun to do these live things. It's like it's already 8:20, already an hour 20 into the Hangout. Time flies so fast on these Hangouts. We're gonna take a little break of mysterious sounds, and maybe we why not tune the bands a little bit and see what we can hear at at 0100. What I would be listening to. There's Voice of Vietnam, 6175.
Previously, Fulcrum Temple stood in the middle of the field. It was called Fulcrum Hamlet. It was later damaged and ruined. The state provincial authorities and local people jointly invested in restoring the temple.
The 10 people in 11 villages of Phu Khai, Phu Khẩu, Thanh Khai, Bắc Sơn, and
So,
Phan Rang
Voice of Vietnam is in English from 01 to 0130 at this time.
The process recently contributed 25,000 US dollars.
You also have
temple to replace the old one, which had been ruined.
We had an ambitious plan.
Radio Romania,
1906, and up until the interwar period when the
7325.
was initiated to mount shatterings. There was a whole grid of
6145 also.
At present, we can still see them in southern Dobruja, where foresters and engineers worked together to create a network of windbreaks.
This autumn, the National Forest Administration of Silva has kicked off works to build the first windbreak in the
Yes, Scotty TR6. I've already been starting to play with the DLNA stuff. I've been really enjoying and playing around with it.
Studies allow for building a 600-kilometer-long network of windbreaks at national level. However, the success of the project depends on landlords.
Another thing that's in English at this time is China Radio, 9570.
Followed by Iran and South Korea. The Chinese squad played 2 warm-up matches this month. They tied New Zealand 1-1.
6020 also.
Honduras to a scoreless draw. Germany remains number 1 in the world, followed by Argentina and Colombia. China's Ministry of Public Security has announced that 240 million people are licensed to drive cars in the country, the largest such number worldwide. The ministry says that the country is home to 150 million automobiles in use, accounting for 15% of the world's total. In the last 10 years, the number of female drivers on the road increased 11-fold, while that of male drivers rose 7-fold. This milestone means that car ownership exceeds 20 for every 100 families. On average, every 100 Chinese households have 25 private cars. And in big cities including Beijing, Guangzhou, and Chengdu, that number has exceeded 40. An exhibition of works by the great French sculptor Auguste Rodin has opened at the National Museum of China in Beijing.
So these are a few of the things that we hear in the bands. There's also Cuba, 6000, 6165 at this time.
3 minutes past them to Radio Havana, Cuba. Thanks for joining us on this Friday here in Havana. Up next we have Ivan Marquez. He has today's sports report. Ivan. Thanks, Pat. Following speech racing Mexico in the medal stands up 22nd Central American Caribbean Games in Veracruz 2014. As of Thursday, Mexico's leading games so far with 96 goals, celebrated silver and 93 gold medals, followed by the team delegation with 88 gold, 56 silver, and 53 bronze. And Guatemala, 51 gold, 52 silver, and 57 bronze medals.
It is expected that given the
So many English language broadcasts available at 100 hours for anyone with portable shortwave. Even on the little, a lot of people say, well, you have a good radio. Yeah, well, let's try it out here. And the hangout earlier today, there's this guy in Serbia that got the Texan R9012, and I was wondering what we can hear, and because it seemed not to hear a lot, and I noticed there's a lot of noise. So let's tune around with this one. So I'm going to be on 6 megahertz now.
What words of encouragement would I have for someone that may be asking themselves if they should step up?
On our radio.
So first up in China Daily, Bill Gates has cameoed an anti-slavery video. Bill Gates, co-chairman of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, has a cameo role in a Chinese anti-smoking music video, which is part of a social media campaign launched by the foundation against passive smoking. The song "Say No to Forced Smoking" was released on
In the beginning was no American well, Gregory Clark is sharing his research and the hard truth is no home.
One of the last words
The United States.
It's always a little hard to tune around, but you get the drift of these little receiver. Pretty amazing, receiving all these signals. Just with telescopic antenna, and I'm in a noisy environment here. So you don't need to have expensive radios to listen to shortwave. You need expensive radios if you want to listen to really more profound stuff. Stuff that's weaker, or stuff that might be hidden next to something strong. So let's continue on our tuning of weird signals that you might hear. You might hear a weird broadcast like this. Sounds robotic. This one on 5450 is the British Royal Air Force. There could be another one here. Come across these transmissions. What are those? What's this mysterious thing? First of all, you have to decode it, because a lot of people come across. I remember the first time I heard something that was a single sideband signal. You get into it and you're like this. What is that? And you try to decode it, or you try to tune around, and you have the impression that it's a voice transmission, but you just can't pin down what it is exactly. Well, these are single sideband signals. That's another mysterious thing in shortwave. And there's different types of single sideband stuff. You get, first of all, you have to understand how to decode it. So you need a radio that has a single sideband capability, or some radios have what we call a BFO, which is a beat frequency oscillator. These are used. Then you have to understand that there's upper and lower sideband, and you have to understand how to tune it. It's not easy to tune the first time you actually try it, and you try to find what these weird sounds are, And someday, instead of sounding like this, you find a good setting, you play with your radio, and you finally get clear voice.
Visibility more than 6 miles. Clear. Returning between 12000 and 14000.
So you'll hear them pretty much all over the band, and you're wondering, well, what are they? You know, some you'll understand that there are amateur radio operators. You'll hear them chit chat together and give out call letters, and that's cool. Some, like these, you're like, what's that? Well, this one's aviation weather. These are basically weather observations and broadcasts of weather phenomena, observations for airplanes. You also have the same type of transmission for maritime. So for boats at sea, you'll get these hurricane warnings and these seas, you know, the waves, the height of the waves, and all sorts of things like that. It's going to be interesting for, you know, boats. You also have all sorts of transmissions, even you know, number stations sometimes in upper sideband. There's a lot of stuff, and depending on where you're listening, you can hear, you know, more or less of these. Here's the same type of signal, but in the this is an amateur radio signal in single sideband. And what makes this sounds mysterious very often is the fact that for, you know, a long period of time when you get that new radio, trying to understand the correct setting to decode a upper or lower sideband, you know, especially on a portable. There's no upper or lower on most portables. So you have to tune, fine tune, find the correct setting, play with that little wheel here for the BFO, and you're kind of, what? How do I decode that? And that's why that might be mysterious for a long period of time, because you hear them and you just can't decode them. And so by not really knowing what it is, you play around, and you know, I don't know how long it took me to just decode something on my DX100 here. If you want to have a really hard to tune single sideband radio, the old DX100 right here, wow, that was kind of difficult to really tune around. That was something. What else can you hear? The mysterious sounds of shortwave. Well, I just mentioned one of them, and I'm going to give you an example of that. Here's an old one. We don't hear a lot anymore, but this one's going to be these kind of mysterious musical notes. So these are number stations. So number stations. I don't have an example right now. Number stations don't always operate on a schedule. Some do, some don't. They're not always easy to receive. But you know, number stations is another category of very, very odd shortwave signals. Weird stuff that we hear on the bands. Take care, David, in Barcelona. That's going to sleep. Must be quite late. Thanks for being here, and he's gonna watch the rest of the hangout on the once he gets the recording on YouTube. So take care, David, and welcome to the hangout as usual. David in Barcelona. There's interesting stuff about these number stations. Actually, is the fact that for most part, pretty much everybody that hears number stations will kind of tell you that for the most part they transmit only numbers, group of numbers. There's different types of number stations. There's the vocal type, the one that you hear sending out, and actually I have a few recordings of the Cuban one. Cuba is the easiest one to hear in North America, but I heard a few Russians, and there's a lot of these number stations still on the air, and some are with groups of numbers, letters, some are with weird messages. There are some that are not voice, some are CW. You'll hear a Morse code signal sending out groups of numbers and letters, and that's it. And you'll wonder, wow, what's that? There's a lot of mystery surrounding number stations. Because first of all, the governments that all run these and the agencies, first of all, want you to tune away from there. They don't really want you to listen to that. So that adds to the mysteriousness, the fact that we don't know a lot about those. There's a website called Numbers and Oddities that is great. Just type numbers and oddities and in Google, and you'll go to the website where they have two excellent PDF publications you can read on your computer or tablet, and that give you frequencies and logs of all the mysterious stations, spy stations from all over the world. And there's tons of transmissions from a lot of countries, a lot of in Asia. There's Russians. There are a few ones in Europe, a few ones in Africa. We have Cuba sending out here. There probably are more. What they intend to do as transmissions is probably broadcast some type of vital information to a spy somewhere else. It could be a spy, it could be some kind of government agency that's receiving it, and it's a mysterious way of broadcasting it. One actually interesting question a friend of mine brought up about these spy transmissions is the fact that why do they use shortwave in an era where they could use quite easily the internet to really send some unknown message? And that is a good question, actually, because it is true that they could use the internet for that type of transmission, and they'd probably be sending out encrypted stuff through the web quite easily without being detected. But one thing that I think keeps the number stations on shortwave, for you to receive a secret message on the web, you need to have access to a lot of things. You need to have access to a internet connection and a computer or some device that uses the internet. And the internet isn't available everywhere. If your spy is out there on the field somewhere, he might not be able to connect to the web everywhere he goes, but he will easily, even with a very cheap radio like this, be able to tune to that signal, especially if where he's transmitting, that broadcast is sent to a region or an area, a specific area. So in that specific area, it's very strong. An example is Cuba. The spy numbers from Cuba are very powerful in the United States. And one of the main reasons for that is probably it's because the target area for the spy numbers from Cuba are US territory. That would seem logical. And so they're so strong that just a very small, cheap portable will let you receive such transmissions. On the internet, if you receive a message, if you get caught, well, they can search a hard drive, they can search whatever you were listening or actually watching or what message you received. Once the transmissions ended here, there's no trace on a radio that you actually were listening to a spy station. You can just, move the dial and say, I'm listening to shortwave. No, there's nothing that it IDs or it identifies the radio as being a receiver of, some kind of spy message. So I think that is one of the reasons for shortwave still being used for spy transmissions. It's very easy to just, send that message somewhere. And in areas where it's very difficult, if you have a spy in a very, very difficult part of the world, where even having, a phone or an internet connection is almost impossible, that's pretty much a good way of transmitting and of getting information across. And the shortwave spectrum is so vast that sending out a spy message on shortwave can actually really be sent out for a few minutes without never anyone noticing whatsoever that there was something on the air. And I bet you that as we speak now, there's some kind of spy transmission, and probably many spy transmissions across the shortwave spectrum all around the world. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of them are not even, in a list like the numbers and oddities list. So, it's, some more interesting, weird signals from, the bands and getting to know where they come from. Pretty much the only thing we know is how to pinpoint a little bit by triangulation where the signal might be coming from. And, from the language, you get an idea. The Russian ones, it's not complicated. They speak Russian. So you pretty much say, well, we have our friend John McClure here. Oh, we'll answer a few questions here that are interesting. And one is from a Abyssinian guy saying, are there any stations down in Antarctica that broadcast on shortwave? Yes, there are. Antarctica has one that is probably regularly logged every every year and is on at this time. I've seen, I think Glenn Hauser and a few people mentioned that in the past week or two they received it, is LRA 36, which is a station from the base Esperanza San Gabriel, something like that, which is an Argentinian base in Antarctica. And the idea is that transmission is for the crew and the people around that area, so that they can receive, some broadcasts. But it actually makes it farther away. I personally never heard Antarctica on shortwave as a broadcast. I've heard amateur radio stations in Antarctica. I've heard a few weeks ago, I got stations, an amateur radio station from Antarctica. He was on the American Amundsen Scott U.S. Antarctica base, and he was actually transmitting in the contest. There was a CQ Worldwide single sideband contest a few weeks ago, and he was actually transmitting from there. That is, I think, the only time I've heard Antarctica on shortwave. If you want to try LRA 36, first you need a very quiet location, a good setup, good radio antenna. They are on, I think, I'm not sure if they're in upper sideband or just regular, but AM, but they're on 15476 kilohertz. And they usually are heard around 1900 UTC. So if you want to try that, what I would do is try it, regularly every day. Even if you don't hear it one day, don't give up. Try it again and again. At some point, you'll get into that part of the spectrum of propagation, actually, conditions that are going to show up that are just right, and you're going to be able to hear it one day. I try it regularly. I don't try it every day. I usually try it because I'll go on email and suddenly see that somebody logged it, and I'm going to be like, oh, somebody just received LRA 36, and I try it on, but no luck. Never heard. Glenn Hauser in Oklahoma heard it many times, so it seems to really propagate. But he's probably I don't know what setup Glenn Hauser has in his shack, but he seems to be in a very quiet location and to have pretty good antennas, because it's pretty amazing the DX stuff that he's receiving at his location in Oklahoma. So it's pretty cool for that. I think we're gonna, before wrapping up, go into a little bit of questions, because I've been having a little bit of questions here from different people. So okay, for Antarctica, hope that answers your question. Yeah, the mysterious number station with the little tune is what we call the Lincolnshire Poacher. That was the name given to that that station. Yeah, a little bit of tips. Usually, if you get the hang of tuning, because to go back a little bit on the single sideband signals, and I was saying that there's upper and lower sideband. One general rule is, first, try to understand on your receiver how you tune a lower sideband signal and how you tune an upper sideband signal. And the best thing you can try to understand that is go on the amateur radio bands. Below 10 megahertz, you have lower sideband on the amateur radio band. So on 7 megahertz, 40 meters, 3 megahertz, 80 meters, you'll have lower sideband. On above 10 megahertz, so on the 20 meter band, 14 megahertz, on the 15 meter band, 21 megahertz, on the 17 meter band, 18 megahertz, on the 10 meter band, 28 megahertz. These are upper sideband. And you'll notice when you tune with the BFO that you go in one direction when you're in upper sideband, and you go in another direction when you're in lower sideband. It takes time to get the feel and have it working right, but that's a general rule of thumb. There are exceptions to the rule. This rule is only for amateur radio. And except for 60 meter, if you go to 5 megahertz, that's an upper sideband. That's an exception to the rule. And if you are not in amateur radio bands, 98% of everything you're going to hear are in upper sideband. All weather broadcasts and maritime stations are in upper sideband. If you have, you can hear military stuff. You can listen to the aeronautical frequencies with, listening to airplanes that are, over the sea. All that is an upper sideband. So that's something that. One thing that I don't know if I can hear it live. It's just 5696, I think. I'll leave it on that frequency. I'd like to have one live, but if I can't, I'm going to try to make you hear something. Another sound that you might have heard out of shortwave that I just is when you're listening to aeronautical frequencies, so airplanes, you can hear trying to find out here if I can hear something. I don't really have any recording here that I'm trying. Okay, let's try that. Oh, this is another type. I'm trying to get you guys hearing something called ACARS, which is a series of tones that you hear in the broadcast station. This one is a digital one, but anyway, you might have heard a few tones, and that sound weird. These are IDs for called ACARS for airplanes in aeronautical frequencies. Lots of stuff that you can hear on the bands actually. So this is part of the strange world of shortwave, the strange signals we hear, and adds that little something to the listening experience, because there's something fun about having a little bit of mystery in what we're hearing. That's one thing that I like about shortwave also, is getting that mysterious signal that nobody ID'd before, or somebody else heard it, but you go on the web and you try to find that information about that weird signal or station. It's quite interesting. We have Susan in California saying, how do you know all of that stuff? Well, that's 32 years of shortwave radio listening. 32, 2014, 32 years basically of very intense shortwave listening. I must say that I'm kind of a little, crazy listening to shortwave the way I do. It's something very intense, and I probably listen to shortwave at least 10 to 20 hours a week minimum. My radio, when I'm here, my radio's on almost all the time. I will take breaks from time to time, but all of that information is the thing is you learn as you listen, and it's like everything in life. The more time you will take for a hobby, the more you'll know about that hobby, and it's pretty much where it is. But I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I don't know. You can't really know everything, and there are parts of the shortwave hobby that I'm not very, knowledgeable and some people are much better than me on that type of signals or decoding and stuff. Even just look at digital decoding. I've posted a lot of videos of digital decoding signals, but there's some people that are much better than me that really know their stuff around digital modes, and that will find the mode of a signal much faster than me. Digital mode decoding is probably maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3% of my listening time. Most of it is really listening to audio stuff, voice transmissions and stuff like that. Andrew saying that he's been having a lot of difficulty for decoding Morse code in his iPhone. Yeah, on the amateur radio band, you'll have a hard time tonight. Just listen to these packed stations here. 20 meters. Look at that. I got the number of stations here. That's probably the hardest part for a computer and a piece of software, decoding when there's so many signals packed together, jam-packed together. Yeah, play with the settings, check it out. One of the things that probably is hard on the iPhone software, it's when a human is sending CW or Morse code. A human isn't always precise in its timing, and that really bugs a lot the software, because it's a computer listening to Morse code. So the computer likes it when it's very stable and always at the same precise moments. So when a human that's not used to sending CW sends it at a varying speed, software kind of has a lot of difficulty in decoding it. Also, this is maybe not the best time, because you'll hear mostly call letters now. But you can try. One thing you can try, and that would probably be my choice. Get the W1AW CW signal. I don't remember where it is, but W1AW has this, it's Morse code stuff that's sent, I think it's on 3580 every night. So you could tune around these CW bulletins in various speed from W1AW and decode these. I think that would be a good idea. And that is a very stable signal because it's sent out by a computer. So we are almost at the end of our shortwave hangout, guys. Man, 2 hours flies. It's incredible. So we're going to have the next hangout. I'm going to talk about the next hangout. And the next hangout is going to happen in December. So if we look at our December calendar here, I'm just going to check where I posted my news. Okay. The next shortwave hangouts, for all of you that want to take note of it, will be on a Sunday. And it's going to be happening on Sunday, December 14th. So Sunday, December 14th, and it's going to be early afternoon. It's going to be at 1900 hours UTC. So take that as a note. Sunday, December 14th, and it's going to be at 1900 hours UTC. That's 2 p.m. in the afternoon here in East Coast, North America. 19 UTC, so Europe will have evening. So hope to have a lot of Europeans out there. And the subject for our next hangout, I've been, jotting down all these subjects right here on this piece of paper every time I think about something. The next hangout is going to be live decoding of digital signals. So I'll have my computer here, and we'll tune different signals. Hopefully, maybe you guys can use a computer and decode something also. And I'll be using different pieces of software. So I'm going to decode signals using FLDG, MixW, the other one that I talked about that I have a little whiteout here. That I've, all the different things, and also not just with computers. We'll try it with an iPad or my iPhone. We'll decode Morse code, BPSK, MFSK, and one of the things that we will do is during the hangout, we will decode live the VOA radiogram. And that's one of the reasons why I chose that time frame, because we will be in the middle of a VOA radiogram that has different digital modes that will be decoding together. So, why not take a peek? And digital modes is the next hangout. I think that's going to be really interesting. So live decoding on the air. I'll probably find a way to put the camera closer to the screen to make sure that you can see the texts and everything. So, or I'll move the camera depending on what we're decoding or not. So hope you guys are going to be there Sunday, December 14th at 1900 hours UTC is in the hangout. Hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show about mysterious sounds. There's a lot more. Probably some I missed, some I don't. Like tomorrow I'm going to hear something and say, "Oh man, that's a good one." I didn't talk about it. Unfortunately, sometimes just forget. So thanks for following me tonight. Already 2 hours gone. Incredible. Thanks, guys. Thanks for everyone, and hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye. Take care.